please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Person?
Here.
Ms. Witchy?
Here.
Mr. McGurven?
Here.
Ms. Perez?
Here.
Mr. Pavoni? Here. Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All present.
Thank you, Megan. First item on the agenda is a proclamation.
This proclamation is regarding National Night Out 2016. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on August 2nd, 2016, entitled National Night Out. And whereas the 33rd Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for the City of Renton to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts. And whereas the City of Renton plays a vital role in assisting the Renton Police Department through joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts in the community and is supporting National Night Out locally. And whereas it is essential that all citizens of the City of Renton be aware of the importance of crime prevention programs and the impact their participation can have on reducing crime, drugs, and violence in their community. And whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of National Night Out program. And whereas National Night Out is a great way for residents to meet and socialize with their neighbors, which builds community and strengthens neighborhood bonds. Now, therefore, I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim August 2nd, 2016 to be National Night Out 2016 in the City of Renton, and I encourage all citizens to help give crime and drugs a going-away party by participating in the 33rd Annual National Night Out event. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this first day of August 2016, and this is signed by Mayor Dennis Law.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we approve the proclamation as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that this proclamation be accepted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Of course, we have Cindy Parks here from our Crime Prevention Division to accept this proclamation. How's the weather going to be tomorrow, Cindy?
Oh, that's unfair. Mother Nature said she will possibly take mercy on me tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm going to hold her to her word, and Deborah Needhams, by the way, who looked at her little fancy weather map. So I just want to say thank you again to Mayor Law and Council for supporting this event. It's growing more and more popular every year. It's an honor to put it on. I love the communities it's held in, and they reciprocally love it back. So I'm hoping that Mother Nature is kind to us tomorrow, which I have no doubt she will be, and I hope to see some of you there. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That's great, Cindy. Thank you very much for the great job you do and the police department's participation. It's a great event.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to a special presentation, Chief Mark Peterson.
Good evening, members of the council. Tonight I'm bringing before you our Fire Marshal Angela St. John and Eric Walgren, my Deputy Chief for Response Operations, who developed and implemented a plan for 4th of July this year and in our enforcement efforts and how we were covering the city. So without further ado, Chief Walgren.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Eric Walgren, Deputy Fire Chief, and Angela St. John, Fire Marshal. In front of you should have a memorandum sort of summarizing the 4th of July events this year. If you don't, I've got hard copies.
Anybody have?
Nope.
I don't have it.
No. We did have an email some time ago.
Okay, so 4th of July 2016, Response Operations and Community Risk Reduction partnered to develop a pre-incident action plan to make sure that we're taking proactive steps towards safety, prevention, and protection of property this year. We actually hired back 13 extra personnel to staff our operations above and beyond what our normal staffing is normally on each day of the 4th of July. We operated our own department operation center, which we were dispatching the non-priority fireworks related calls outside of Valleycom's normal dispatching procedure. That allowed us the opportunity to send the right resources to the right type of calls. We also had personnel down at the Gene Coulon event for EMS standby, for possible water rescue, and then any fire-related incidents that occurred down there, as well as our inspectors and firefighters that were out patrolling the city of Renton between the certain hours that'll be detailed here shortly. The North Benson and North Renton area saw much more activity this year than in previous years. In fact, between the hours of 9:30 p.m. and 11 p.m., it was tough to keep up with the call volume, the complaints, firework-related complaints that were occurring during that time frame. But we did have resources responding out into those areas through the dock to address any fireworks-related complaints during that time. We actually had less fireworks related incidents this year than we'd had in previous years, and I've got some statistics here that describe that. We had 75 related fireworks calls this year through the 911 system and through our dock to our first responders. Normally we average around 130, so it was quite a decrease from previous years. But the one thing that is noteworthy is that we did collect more fireworks than we had in previous years. So the contacts that we made with customers out in the street, we were actually collecting more fireworks than in previous years. In fact, we've filled up our storage space that we use to contain those. So community risk reduction staff all worked on the 4th. The entire division was out providing enforcement. We did pair up those inspectors with firefighters that were out in certain areas of the city. Like I mentioned earlier, the Benson Hill and North Renton area were specifically busy, or busier than normal. We didn't issue any citations this year. There was some instances where we had confrontations with the public, but we were, in those situations, we actually backed away and didn't become confrontational with those folks. As I mentioned, 75 fireworks-related incidents is much less than what we had in previous years. The previous year's averages were around 130. And then at the end of the night, we did have one duplex fire. It was a complete loss. It was fireworks-related. Fireworks that were improperly discarded caused the fire, and 2 families were displaced and actually had to be taken care of by Red Cross.
Some of the challenges that we had that night were access to private property. What we found this year that we hadn't seen in the past is folks moving to their backyards and using their fireworks. We don't have the right to go onto their private property to confront them over the use of fireworks. So I think that's something that we can work with the city attorney's office maybe to see if there's some resolution that we can come to in terms of having a discussion at least with those folks. We also had, as Eric said, we had fewer calls, but we saw a lot more fireworks use this year. So I think just proactively patrolling through the neighborhoods, as soon as we would come in contact or see somebody who was using fireworks, we would stop, have a discussion with them. So those didn't get logged as a complaint call, but we would actually take their fireworks at that point. And as Eric said, by about 10 o'clock, our storage locker was full. We had to stop confiscating fireworks at that point because we could no longer legally store them. So another option for us to look at that, maybe expanding our capabilities for what we can store. I would suspect that if we have another year like this year where the weather was nice and it wasn't so hot, that we'll continue to see a lot of folks using fireworks. I can also tell you that the folks that we came in contact with, the first thing I would ask them is, are you aware that we have ordinance in the city of Renton that prohibits the use of fireworks? 90% of the folks that I would talk to would say, yes, but my neighbor's doing it. And so it's not an issue of them not knowing that they're illegal. It's just this idea of other people are using them, and so therefore it's okay if I do it too. People are very concerned about equity. Are we going to stop and address their neighbors as well? The problem that we have is as soon as we stop at one house, everybody runs in their house and hides. So it was difficult to address the folks that would then go in their house. So we would try to come back to the areas that we knew we had seen a lot of fireworks used that night. We did hand out a lot of brochures that night. Even once the storage container was full, we would talk to the people that we would see using fireworks. And the last thing that Eric said is there are still some safety concerns, I think, in terms of confronting people. A lot of the folks that we come in contact with have been drinking quite a bit when we see them with fireworks, and so sometimes they're a little bit agitated that we're stopping and talking to them. So it was nice to have the firefighters riding with us. I think that's important that we're teamed up. But we do have very limited resources, and as he said, we had every one of our inspectors were out on the road that night working. So we were fully committed to what we could do.
I saw a different strategy this year. I was in an unmarked car actually assisting with some of the enforcement. And you could hear the fireworks around the block from where I was sitting in my vehicle. And by the time I drove around the corner, they were already disappeared. I mean, in years past, you could drive down the street and see large displays at the end of every cul-de-sac. And it was obvious that, these fireworks were actually being used. This year, it was so difficult to try and locate the noise or the sound or the complaints that we were seeing and hearing. It was, out of 75 calls, we only made contact with 45 of those that we physically made contact with. So do you have any questions for us?
Any questions from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Person.
Well, in the past, it's been a joint effort between the police and fire, and they would have police officers out with the inspectors and stuff, and so
Now, that was going to be our strategy again this year, but we had such a shortage of police personnel that we couldn't pull that off. But originally, that had been our intention. And last year, we issued quite a few citations. So I totally understand the fire department's concern when you go into a situation like that, because you get an antagonized crowd, and the last thing you want is our firefighters fighting with somebody, so.
no, and I wouldn't expect that.
No.
That's why I was concerned that.
It
that
clearly is better when we have police officers with the
We didn't have police
inspectors,
officers.
yeah. Any other
So,
questions?
I have a question. Did we
Yes.
hand out any citations at all?
The fire department did not issue any citations this year, and it kind of came back to that concern of not having, being able to have that partnership this year. What we found last year was that where we issued citations, it seemed to escalate the situation with the folks that we were issuing those to. So definitely a significant safety concern there on behalf of our members.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Perez.
Especially on that day. I live really close to Benson Hill, and as you mentioned, it was noticeable how different it was from other years. And one of the things that I was really concerned at the time, I was at home. I just came back from traveling, and I couldn't go to Cullen Park. And social media, all the outlets in social media, you name it, Facebook, Twitter, even Nextdoor, because a lot of people were going to go to work and the next day stay home. And they were really outraged and putting the anger through social media, saying, we keep calling the police, we keep calling this, nobody's answering, nobody's responding. Why we have this in place if nobody's enforcing it? And it was a moment that it was a lot of frustration from the community. Maybe what I'm asking here is when you guys show up, and a lot of people were actually, the ones that were not complaining and the people that were actually using the fireworks, they even posted on Facebook. They don't feel that they go against anything. When you are there and talking to them and making them aware that this is not, that the neighbors are not okay with this, it's not just against them, but it's other people are bothered about this. What is the response of the community that they're actually using the fireworks?
I think the general response that we get is people feel like it's their personal right to come out and celebrate the 4th, regardless of what the municipal code says in regards to fireworks. Like I said, most of the folks that we came in contact with knew that they're not allowed in the city of Renton, which surprises me when they say, yeah, we're aware, but our neighbors are doing it, so therefore it's okay. I think one of the things that will help in the Benson Hill area next year is Kent has passed a fireworks restriction as well. So we saw a lot of activity along the Kent border and trickling over into Renton. In fact, there's a fireworks stand that was set up right there off of Talbot that it's right on the border of Renton selling fireworks. And so that will not be the case next year. So hopefully that will restrict a little more of the fireworks. And if they're out actively enforcing their ban starting next year, hopefully we'll see some reduction over along that area.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
you also have to worry about Fairwood because I'm on the other side of Benson Hill that kind of borders Fairwood, and it was a show for hours until at least 2:30 in the morning.
You know, that area, I think, I actually was working that area that night, and it was completely overwhelming between 9:30 and 10:30. We would drive a block and see all sorts of neighbors out shooting off fireworks in the middle of the street. So we would stop at the first one we came to, we'd take the fireworks. By the time we got to the next house, everybody would just kind of scatter and go in their house. So we honestly did the best we could in trying to stop people and have a discussion with them. We just couldn't keep up with the call volume there was that 1 hour where it was just exceptional. And it sounded like a war zone. So I'm completely empathetic to you because I was riding around that area. We had other areas of the city, because I know Eric even came out and helped for a period of time because we had so many calls. There were other areas where he was driving around looking for people and not finding them. And so we definitely had pockets. So I think next year, when we look at our staffing model, we can adjust that and maybe move staff to areas where we know we had a lot of call volume this year, and maybe those areas where we didn't see as many fireworks being used, be a little lighter in those areas.
The only reason I brought that up is because there's a big fireworks stand at the Safeway in Fairwood selling fireworks. So even though Kent has a ban in place, you still have unincorporated King County that doesn't have a ban in place, so you're going to have to find ways to deal with those issues.
Yeah, farther out east, past Station 16, same thing. It was legal in the unincorporated areas of King County.
I would also say, in comparing to last year, the patterns of where we saw fireworks were exactly opposite of what we saw last year. So that was surprising because the Benson Hill area was actually fairly quiet last year over the 4th. This year, exactly the opposite. So it makes it a little difficult to do any kind of forecasting or predicting on where we want to put our staff to make sure we have the most bang for our buck that night, if you will.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr.
I
Corman.
was just going to say, maybe for next year we ought to work on our messaging a little bit in the sense that I saw some questions come in about the ban. I think maybe there was a misconception on the part of the public that those of us down here at City Hall decided to ban this and we're infringing on people's rights. And a lot of people have forgotten that the citizens of Renton voted 2-1 to ban fireworks. So when people do light these fireworks, they're offending 2 of their neighbors for every one of them that's lighting the fireworks. And I realize it's been long enough. I think people didn't realize that they just think it's us deciding what's good for them, but it's really everybody around them. So maybe next year we should make sure we make a point in advertising. This was a decision the city that the residents of Renton made. In fact, specifically what happened was the Renton City Council had voted for a ban, then somebody had said, they didn't think a ban was appropriate, and floated a proposition to overturn it, and 2-1 the citizens said they wanted to keep the ban. So for what it's worth, I don't know if that would help some, but
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Brian.
Yes, in regards to the use of fireworks on private property, you mentioned that being a problem, being unable to access them. Would there be a strategy in place to better address that next year? Would police involvement solve that as far as having the level of probable cause needed to access the property?
I don't know the answer to that question, so it's definitely something we need to explore. We did have, I want to thank the police department because they did work with us this year. They have helped guide us on what the best approach is for us to take in terms of what our role is. And we did include, the city attorney's office was a part of those discussions, so I think there's just some issues with us just accessing people's private property, and I don't know the difference between the police's right to do that versus the fire department's right. So it's something we can definitely follow up on.
At least in my case, it was very difficult to determine which private property this was occurring, especially downtown. I was covering a lot of the downtown area, and I could literally be around the block, hear the explosion of the firework, come around the corner, and everyone just disappeared, and you're looking at all these houses and apartments and all these different private dwellings, and it was impossible to determine who or where this was coming from. I tried.
I would add one more thing that I didn't bring up in our challenges is we, and I'm going to base this on sound, I'm obviously not an expert, but I worked for the state regulating fireworks for many years before I came here to the city of Renton. And a lot of what we were hearing on the 4th of July this year were not fireworks. They were either homemade devices that people had made, or they were M80s, or they were something of that nature. Those things that you hear that are a really big, deep boom are not a consumer firework. And there was a lot of that this year. So I can understand why people were frustrated and upset with that. And it's terrifying for their kids. It's terrifying for their pets.
And if we did come across devices such as those, it would require a whole different response from our perspective. It's considered a bomb, basically, and so we would have to call in a bomb squad. We can't even handle those types of devices.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Eric, Angela, Mark, appreciate it. Okay, moving on to an appeal. Let's see, who from staff is going to lead us through that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think there's a Planning and Development Committee report. There's already been
okay.
a hearing on it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This Planning and Development Committee report is regarding the Ivana Ridge Planned Urban Development Appeal. The Planning and Development Committee, after reading the submissions, considering the record, and hearing testimony and oral arguments from all sides, finds that there was no substantial error in fact or law that recommends that the full council affirm the decision of the hearing examiner. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move that the council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. McIrvin. The council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, administrative report, Mr. Covington.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of road projects continuing throughout the summer, intermittent closures on various roads in the valley and elsewhere in the city. We have a website, our social media sites list those projects. We just encourage folks to continue to use caution as they drive, watch for signs and indicators of partial closures, and certainly if you see a flag person out, be extra careful and cautious. As the council knows, we had Renton River Days last week. There will be a more formal report later in the fall on that once we gather more information, and so we'll be back to the council probably later in September on that report. I think other than that, Mr. Mayor, that is all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Covington. Moving on to audience comments, we have a couple people signed up to address the council. When I call your name, please come up to the podium, give your name and city of residence for the record, and you have 5 minutes. We have a timer right next to the city clerk. First is Kathleen Boer.
Hello, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak tonight. My name is Kathleen Boer. I'm a resident of North Renton. I'm currently the secretary for North Renton. I was previously the secretary for South Renton and was here when we talked about rezoning. I'm also your King County Civil Rights Commissioner for District 5, and I used to be on the Diversity Advisory Committee. I used to lead a team of volunteers to feed the homeless at Operation Night Watch for about 5 years. I'm engaged in the community. I represent hundreds of people from North Renton, and I also understand the difference between homelessness and crime. This is my husband, Neil Sheasley. He is the president of North Renton. He is on the Renton Municipal Arts Commission. He's a part of Arts Unlimited Renton, and he's formerly on the Renton Airport Advisory Committee for South Renton. He's now working to get a position for North Renton. He's also your neighbor who started playing live music every Friday at the Renton Chamber of Commerce because he loves his city. He's continued doing that this year. I lived in South Renton and North Renton for the last 11 years. In those 11 years, I've had some pretty frightening experiences. The first one being an individual on drugs trying to break into my first floor apartment through the windows and doors. Then my neighbor AJ with GHY Bikes, his house got broken into. The police's response was, well, it's a lot cheaper for the taxpayers for us to watch him than arrest him and try to put him in jail. Since then, I've listened to gunfights at the Masonic Lodge on South Williams and in North Renton. We've had our home broken into and our lives and identities stolen. No fingerprints were taken. Nothing was done. We sold our house in North Renton, and Armando, I don't know if you remember, we went to your office and looked out your window and said, oh, look, you can see our bedroom window from your office window. We moved. We moved into our house on September 13th of last year, and we are currently forced to live a life of avoiding drug dealers. We have a drug dealer that lives just a few doors down, and he has another drug dealer friend, and they both deal drugs in front of our house. It's practically a daily occurrence. The one to the west of us, just 3 doors down, he often uses another street now because he knows we call the police. Have any of you witnessed a drug deal that close? Have you ever been offered water at the transit center? Have you ever been threatened by a person in front of your home on drugs? Have you ever had a drug dealer retaliate? I've had a drug dealer that I called the cops on walk by my house and yell at me and tell his friends who I am and say, there's that bleep bleep that calls the cops on us. Have any of you felt so alarmed that you have to lock your house and stay inside and not go in your front yard? I've had to miss work to stay home and protect my house. We've had to miss vacations because we can't leave our home. Can you imagine any of that in front of your house? I'm asking you to. This is how I live my life today. In July, I've placed 6 calls to 911 and 2 calls to the non-emergency line. The last one was on July 23rd, and this officer is the one that responded. This drug deal was 22 feet. I measured. It's 22 feet from me to you, Mayor. This drug deal happened in front of my house, and we called 911. He's the one that came and retaliated the next day. We live in a neighborhood full of crime in North Renton and call the police regularly. Not only were M80s going off, drunk people were shooting guns in the air. So we call the police regularly because of the drug deals in front of the house. We've learned that they're dealing water at the transit center, which is marijuana dipped in PCP or embalming fluid. If things aren't crazy enough now, they're going to get crazier. Since my husband Neil and I have become officers with the neighborhood, we're now recognized everywhere we go. That's due in part because we go to the farmers market, Coulon Park, the Yappy Hours. We go to everything Renton Rivers Day. People stop and talk to us. What do they talk to us about? Crime. What is the city doing? When are we going to get help? How can they build an elementary school inside of our neighborhood when there's so much crime? And we attended the Renton River Days Pancake Breakfast and met some local business owners, and they're fed up. They want to leave. Everyone that we run into wants to. At our last neighborhood meeting, we talked about the city center plan and some of the securities that were guaranteed in that plan. We're not getting those securities.
Excuse me, Kathleen. Counsel, if you don't have any objections, I'm just going to let her continue.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm here as a person trying to make a living and build a home in North Renton. I'm struggling. We are not comfortable with the environment of crime in our neighborhood. We had to duck and run into our home the day we moved in from a gunfight. We've seen SWAT run by our house in full gear with their assault rifles out twice, and that was within 6 months. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the 5 levels, we just have the bottom because the next level is safety, security. We can't get past the bottom level. I understand there's limited resources and everyone is working within those limitations. All of us are dealing with that. In my job, in my home, everywhere, we have to watch our resources, but something has to be done. The city's website says, we will provide a healthy, welcoming atmosphere where citizens choose to live, raise families, and take pride in their community. I can't say that I see that. The city's website also states, Renton is the perfect place to live, work, and play. The Renton that I live in and see every day, that only applies to the drug dealers and criminals. Thank you.
Excuse me, Kathleen. If you don't mind, I'd like to set up a meeting with you and some of our police administration to go over this. So we've got your information here, so we'll call and get in touch with you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next is Diane Dobson.
Good evening. I'm Diane Dobson at 806 North Riverside Drive. I've spoken in front of you before, and it was largely due in part to the crime that I witnessed in front of my house that I had hoped the city take a more proactive approach with. That's not what brings me here today, though. Ironically, it was my frustration at how that was being handled and exploring the options of running for city council myself. And as such, I looked into volunteering in different capacities and started becoming acutely aware of the different volunteer capacities that were available, including the City Center Community Advisory Board. Although that wasn't the advisory board that I originally wanted to apply for, I applied anyway in November 2013 and I received no response. I made inquiry about that application and I received no response. I sent an email to the mayor to find out why I had received no response. And in the meantime, I started reading the plan in detail. And lo and behold, I was surprised to read the plan impacted not only my home, but my parents' home and my daughter's home as well, too. Is everybody on the council familiar with the City Center Community Plan? Is anybody not familiar with the plan?
It's been presented to us.
Okay, so everyone's familiar with the fact that I shouldn't have to reiterate the fact that there's 2-block stretch of houses, 27 different parcels, including single-family houses, multi-family dwellings, apartments, and businesses that will be removed as part of this plan. My house included, my parents' house included, and with any changes on Park Avenue, it's going to impact my daughter's house as well. This is 3 generations of Dobsons that are being impacted with one city center community plan. This is what I discovered while I was being ignored about the City Center Advisory Board. Made inquiry to the department, was stonewalled by the department. Then Nextdoor started becoming active in our neighborhood, and I noticed one of our neighbors had inquiry about the same city center plan. He had purchased his house in 2009, was planning a major home remodel, was digging into permits and zoning in 2011 when the plan was adopted and found out about this plan. Reached out to the city to find out what was in store for his house before he sinks lots of money into it, and he's been stonewalled since that time.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Kermit.
Can I just get a clarification? Maybe I don't quite understand what we're talking about. I guess I want to make sure we do. Can somebody who was closer to the development of that plan give us a little bit of background? I mean, I know we're not condemning any property or anything with that plan. We may be, and I'm surprised if we've changed the zoning, but I've forgotten, I guess.
That might be Chip.
Maybe.
Chip, can you answer that question?
Yeah.
Councilmember Corman, Mayor Law, members of the City Council, Chip Vincent from Community and Economic Development. I think what Ms. Dobson is referring to is a concept in the plan to naturalize the Cedar River and the corridor. Right now, as you know, the trail along the Cedar River is actually down next to the river itself and is not usable most of the year because the waters come up. There's Community Services Department has been working with Department of Natural Resources and Department of Ecology to look at alternatives that are expressed in the plan to, one, naturalize the river, to restore the riparian area, the buffer along it, and then two, to move that trail out from the water up onto the upland area so it's not flooded out during part of the year. Specifically, and there's a concept in the plan that shows exactly what I've just described to you if you want to look at it. However, no specific plan has been identified for how that's going to be completed, which properties will be affected, what alternatives the city will consider in implementing that plan. It's just a concept and a strategy because during the public outreach and development of the plan, it was identified that it was an important opportunity to look at providing better access for pedestrians to be able to walk along the river that they currently can't do today when the trail's covered by water a good part of the year. And at the second time, be able to naturalize the river to provide the shading for the benefits for the fish that are migrating up the river.
So to paraphrase, so at least one of the concepts in the plan does show what people could be interpreting as potentially taking of their property or selling of their property or something.
Conceptually, yes, but I will just say there are no parcel boundaries. It's just a conceptual rendering that provides a visual image for how the Cedar River corridor could be transformed for the benefit of wildlife with naturalization and for the pedestrians. And it's just a concept.
I understand. Okay, thank you for the explanation. We should let the speaker continue. I appreciate it. Thanks.
I find it ironic that Mr. Vincent was here to provide that explanation because we've been reaching out to Mr. Vincent incessantly to the point of not receiving responses anymore as to this conceptual plan. Having heard no responses and having another neighbor being stalled on a major remodel, his house now sits in disrepair for the last 4 years. No remodel, no forward momentum, just sits there. We had my 78-year-old mother approach one of your city representatives about this conceptual plan when you were giving away free hot dogs at Liberty Park. And Terry Higashiyama did inform my mother that the plan is in place to remove those homes, and the city would undertake eminent domain if necessary. I approached via email Mr. Vincent about this. In the process, Mr. Mayor, you've been included in these emails, and I'll take the opportunity to respectfully say I'm very disappointed in you. I'm very disappointed in you as an elected official that you would allow one of your pioneer families, the city of Renton, to sit and wonder for 3 years as to the outcome of what their home might be and not intervene to encourage your department head to speak to us about the process.
Well, I'll just tell you, Ms. Dobson, I'm not going to debate you here on the floor over this.
I wasn't
I'd
asking
say-
for a response
that's
right
fine.
now,
Well, you're
Mr.
gonna get a
Mayor.
response.
And no, I'm going to continue
The
speaking.
department heads are responding to you constantly, so for you to suggest that they're ignoring you is not true.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I will respectfully agree to disagree and argue that point till day's end.
That's fine.
We had a neighborhood meeting. In fact, your department had told me because we were represented by a neighborhood association, my communication needed to go through that neighborhood association. We jumped through your city hoops and reactivated our neighborhood association, a process that took us over a year to do. We invited your department head to our July 21st neighborhood association meeting at the beginning of June. The beginning of July, he canceled out, despite 3 emails before that time assuring us he would be there. He had 3 very specific subject matters to discuss. He assured us he would send representatives to discuss all 3 subject matters. 2 of the subject matters were discussed. The city plan was left out of the discussion, left out of the PowerPoint, and representatives were sent to our neighborhood association meeting that were not prepared to answer those questions. So I will respectfully agree to disagree with you. If you would like to tell the public that we are receiving information from the city departments, you are wrong.
Okay, well, I'm going to argue with you. You want to finish your comments?
I would like the city council to look into the advisory board. It's my understanding that advisory board members are appointed by council. I was pointed in the direction of those advisory board members by Mr. Chip Vincent. 3 of the 4 members are in our neighborhood. 3 had no idea of this conceptual plan that was involved. The 4th one, who is also a member of the Parks Department Planning Commission, knew nothing about this plan. So I would ask the council to look at your advisory board, who it's comprised of, and make sure that those members are fully invested and committed to those positions. The advisory board members you sent me to told me they have no obligation to speak to the public regarding this plan, that responsibility lies on the shoulder of Chip Vincent and the administration. You guys pointed us in the direction of the advisory board. We're getting bounced back and forth on who to get information from. Your representatives don't come out. Now we're being canceled on our next September meeting because Mr. Vincent is unable to attend that meeting, and it is very important, so says Jennifer Henning, that Chip Vincent or Angie Mathias is at this meeting. However, they weren't. Neither one of them were at the last meeting that neighbors took time off work to be at. So it's your blatant disregard for our schedules, our feelings, our wishes, and our livelihood in our homes.
Okay, thank you. Next is Jackson Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jackson Taylor. I'm a community projects manager for Puget Sound Energy here in Renton. Longtime city council meeting attendee, first-time speaker. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm here tonight to inform you about an exciting energy efficiency program that we're taking directly to Renton residents from August 15th to September 2nd. As you're no doubt aware, PSE administers a number of energy efficiency programs to help our residential, business, and government customers become the best stewards of the energy that they consume and save money on their bills. And with our Upgrades campaign, we're excited to bring that message directly to over 7,000 Renton customers on a door-to-door basis. We'll be walking door-to-door in Northeast Renton, east of 405, so Upper Kennydale, Liberty Ridge, Sunset, President Park, Honey Creek Ridge, and a couple of other neighborhoods, handing out free LED light bulbs and providing valuable energy efficiency information to those customers. So why LEDs? Why are they important? LEDs use about 85% less energy than a traditional incandescent bulb. So if a customer doesn't make any other change in their home, but take that LED bulb that we give them when we interact with them on the door and just put it in their porch light, they will save about $125 over the lifetime of that bulb that they install. They're also long-lasting. They last about 25 times longer than your typical incandescent. So we've designed this campaign to, on an upfront basis, provide an immediate item of value to Renton customers, and then provide them specific information about their home. One of the things that we hear very often as the utility provider of energy efficiency information to customers is they want to be more efficient, they want to send us less money, and they want to be a better steward, but they don't know where to start. So we're going to help them figure out where to start by giving them customized, specific information about their home and where they can realize the best return on investment. On Saturday, August 6th, we'll also be doing an in-store demo with additional discounts on LED bulbs, and that's taking place at the Target at the Renton Landing. So more information about this campaign and other effective energy efficiency programs are available on our website, and I'll also leave my contact information for your city clerk if you guys have any questions.
Council, any questions of Jackson on this? Yes, Mr. Corman.
Just a clarification, if somebody wants advice about making their home more efficient, should they call you, or did you say you're canvassing door to door? How does that work?
Yeah, so we're canvassing about 7,000 homes in Northeast Renton. If customers do have specific energy efficiency information, I would direct them to our website, pse.com.
Okay.
We also have energy advisors that are on the phone available to answer customer questions about energy efficiency Monday through Friday.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Perez.
why choose Northeast Renton?
So those are the neighborhoods of Liberty Ridge, President Park, Sunset,
Yeah, I
Honey
know,
Creek
but
Ridge.
I am asking you, why did you choose those?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a great question. So we wanted to go to homes where they could realize the best possible savings improvements. A lot of the homes in that area come from an era where their building codes might have been different. So we're canvassing specific homes where we think they might have the best opportunity to realize immediate savings if they took energy saving actions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, we have 10 items for council consideration. Are there any items the council member would like pulled for discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Prince?
I'd like to pull item C.
C, okay. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I move approval of the consent agenda minus item C.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, seconded by Mr. Pavoni, that council concur with the consent agenda minus item C. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Prince?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just redirecting where this item is referred to. This item should go to the Planning and Development Committee instead of Community Services.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that item C be referred to the Planning and Development Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, unfinished business, Mr. Corman.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Prince.
Planning and Development Committee has a committee report.
This committee report is regarding the Sunset Area Planned Action Amendment. The Planning and Development Committee recommends concurrence with the staff recommendation to adopt the amended Sunset Area Planned Action and authorizes preparation of the amended Sunset Area Planned Action Ordinance for first reading on August 1st and second reading on August 8th, 2016. This is signed by the committee chair and member, sorry.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Prince.
First, I want to thank Councilwoman Perez for sitting in while my other colleagues were not around. So thank you for sitting in, otherwise we'd be putting this off. I move that the council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Ms. Perez, that council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Person?
No,
Nothing, huh? Wow. Okay, Ms. Witchy?
Yes, the Community Services Committee has a committee report.
This committee report is regarding a Municipal Arts Commission appointment. The Community Services Committee recommends concurrence in Mayor Law's appointment of Aaron Balak to the Renton Municipal Arts Commission for a term expiring on 12/31/2019, and this is signed by the committee chair and vice chair.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Witchy?
I move that the Community Services Committee report be adopted as read.
Second?
It's been moved by Ms. Witchy, second by Mr. Corman, that council concur with the Community Services Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. McIrvin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Utilities Committee has 3 committee reports.
Okay, the first committee report is regarding the Harrington Avenue Northeast Stormwater Retrofit Project Phase 2. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to execute the Washington State Department of Ecology FY 2016 Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Grant Agreement, WQC 2016 Renton 00129, to accept up to $675,000 in grant funds for design and construction of the Harrington Avenue Northeast Green Connections Stormwater Retrofit Project Phase 2. And this is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
I move that the council concur with the Utilities Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, second by Ms. Perez, that council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
This committee report is regarding the Kennydale 320 Pressure Zone Reservoir pre-design project. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to execute the agreement for professional services for the Kennydale 320 Pressure Zone Reservoir pre-design project with Murray Smith and Associates Incorporated in the amount of $419,500 and approve the transfer of $200,000 from the approved 2016 Capital Improvement Program Transmission Main Replacement account to the Kennydale 320 Pressure Zone Reservoir account. The transfer will be included in the next quarterly budget adjustment. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
Yes, this is the item we also heard on at Committee of the Whole. This would get that timeline started. With that, I would move that the council concur with the Utilities Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Ms. Perez, that council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And the final Utilities Committee report is regarding the franchise agreement with for T-Mobile West LLC. The Utility Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to authorize the mayor and city clerk to enter into a franchise agreement with T-Mobile West LLC as a purveyor of broadband telecommunication services within the city of Renton. And that the item be placed for first reading on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, this is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. McIrvin.
Yes, I move that the council concur with the Utilities Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Ms. Perez, that council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a Transportation Innovation Committee report.
This report is regarding the request to lease Acilia products for the use of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technology to collect travel time and origin destination data. The Transportation Aviation Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to authorize the mayor and city clerk to lease Acilia products for the use of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technology to collect travel time and origin destination data with required initial expenditure of $10,400 and an annual maintenance expenditure of $5,000. And this is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Perez.
I move that the council concur with the recommended action of the Transportation Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Perez, seconded by Ms. Witchy, that council concur with the Transportation Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
That will be it. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Mr. Pavoni.
No unfinished business.
Okay, moving on to legislation, we have 2 ordinances this evening.
An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending ordinance numbers 5610 and 5740, adding 5 parcels and redistributing but not increasing the total number of housing units in the Sunset Terrace redevelopment area, and revising a planned action designated for the Sunset area pursuant to the State Environmental Policy Act.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I moved in this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
This is an ordinance of This is an ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, granting unto T-Mobile West LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, authorized to do business within the state of Washington, its affiliates, successors, and assigns the right, privilege, authority, and master permit to install communications facilities under, along, over, below, and through, and across the streets, avenues, and alleys of the City of Renton within the public right-of-way of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
I move that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Ms. Perez. That's it. This ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks, Megan. Moving on to new business, Mr. Corman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, one announcement. It's for Committee of the Whole meeting, August 8th. That's a Monday, 5 o'clock p.m. here in the council chambers. We have one item on that Committee of the Whole agenda, and that is a budget workshop, capital budget prioritization and budget status update. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Prince.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Person.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make up for no business tonight.
Okay.
Next Monday at 4 p.m., the Finance Committee will meet in the council conference room. We have 5 topics: vouchers, City Hall restoration, City Hall roof restoration. We don't want to, well, maybe we want to restore the rest of it, but we're just going to go with the rest of it. And Cash for Kids fee waiver request, Fresh Bucks contract amendment, and emerging issues in revenue streams. And Mr. Mayor, I have a topic that I'd like to refer, I'm trying to think, just refer it to the administration to start with. As we're seeing foreclosures around our area, and I've talked to other council people in different cities and even over in Eastern Washington where we go, we seem to be having trouble with banks who foreclose on a piece of property and own a piece of property and won't do anything to keep it clean and get rid of people who are trespassing. So my question is, can we or do we need a criminal ordinance against those big business that want to ignore us so that we can send their CEO citation? I know in the past, and I started to tell the story earlier, this is many, many years ago, we had a person, big company was doing some land clearing, and they just didn't care. And so we were able to find out who the CEO was, get his date of birth, and write him a criminal citation. And they did stop doing their work. And the funny part about it, the guy says, well, I'm in California, you'll never come and get me. And the answer to that was, yeah, we'll just get a warrant. And about a year and a half later, he wanted to come and visit his property. And guess what? He called because he's afraid that we were going to arrest him. So he cleared up the warrant. But we solved the problem. I mean, and Larry may remember that from way back when, but I think that's an option that we should be taking a look at.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that the issues in regards to vacant properties due to foreclosures be examined and see if we can take action. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We will have our city attorney research that and also other options and get back to you.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Kerman.
Yeah, if I could add, if council action is needed to enhance the options, please bring that forward.
Which we will if we have to create a new ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Ms. Witchy.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. McIrvin.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Perez.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Pavoni.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Public Safety Committee will be having a meeting on Monday, August 8th at 3 o'clock in the council conference room. We have 2 issues, cost reimbursement agreement for sex offender address verification and emerging issues in public safety.
Okay, thank you. What's the wish of the council?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Pavoni that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.